our little, man, I don't even know how many megawatts we have. We won't even talk about it. That's inside information. We're huge. But Roddy, that's why we have a fortress here. You don't know what office we're in at Manchester Center. It's where Jose and our buddy Jeremy coming on board, co-piloting this program. I look at them right now. But right across the street is a little Starbucks. So I stop in there quite frequently, grab a couple of Starbucks, and usually like to bring Jose a little something to munch on while he puts up with me for an hour here. And I went in there, and I haven't been wearing a mask, so there's no problem there. But today, I went in, and this young lady, who very, very nice young lady, we've kind of got a little rapport going, and just very, very nice. But this day she asked me, "Do you have a mask?" And I said, kind of threw me. I went, "No." I thought she was kidding at the beginning. I saw a look on her face, and I knew she wasn't kidding. I said, "No, do you have one?" She goes, "Yes." I just reached under the counter, gave me a mask. So it kind of threw me. I'm kind of him-hawing around. She said, "What would you like today, Mr. Autry?" And I kind of gave her my order, and I looked over, and there was a table with some folks with no masks. And I proceeded to find out through this young lady that actually, Jose and Jeremy and listeners, I never knew it, but the COVID-19 virus actually has manners. It might be deadly, but it apparently has manners and can be respectful at times. Because I asked her, very confused, I asked her, well, why do they don't have masks on? I didn't do it confrontationally, believe me, just inquisitive. And she took it that way. And she says, well, Mr. Archie, she says, you can take it off while you're eating, but you can't, I said, but you can't when you're ordering. He said, that's right. I said, you know how long this is going to last? She goes, well, they're taking about a couple of more weeks. So I'm sitting there thinking, I guess the virus, COVID, respects your right to sit down and meal without being disturbed. I guess when you take you walk into the store before you order, it's all bets are off. The virus is after, man. It's want to kill your butt, put you in the hospital and kill you. But once you sit down and you start to eat your muffin and drink your drink, the virus decides that, you know what, let's leave them alone. Let's not attack them. Let's let them eat, and then we'll get them. Kind of like the last meal when you're on death row, kind of like your compassionate guard or warden who lets you. And I'm watching this and I'm thinking, follow the science. That is the science that Gavin Newsom is following. The science that comes from the CDC that says somehow this virus lays down its evilness, its attack, while you're eating, but once you're finished, it comes after you. And you wonder why you wonder why the truckers are doing what they're doing in Canada. You wonder why folks have just had it. Small businesses have just thrown up their arms and saying, because this is the kind of thing that makes zero sense. It's borderline, it doesn't make sense. It's borderline crazy. It's borderline bat doo-doo crazy. It's borderline Jack Nicholson in the cuckoo's nest crazy. It's not just bad policy. When you have something like that in place, they actually send the mandate down that you have to wear your mask while you're ordering, but when you sit down and eat, you can take your mask off. So hopefully what we've learned through this is not just as a collective country of how we deal with the virus, but hopefully the CDC, governors around the country that implemented, and this is just one example of the craziness out there that's given birth to this huge rebellion against vaccine mandates. It's if they're going to lie about this sort of thing, make up these crazy rules that don't make sense on these things, what else are they lying about? Are they totally being truthful about the vaccines? Have they really done the testing and said there's no long-term effects? Because we've studied it from taking these vaccines, and it not only take our word for it, people, here's the data of the tests that we've done, the surveys that we've done. on these things. And so the good side of this, I think people, even those on the left, those who wanted to support big government coming in and doing, that believe big government is the answer to everything and don't question what comes out of Fauci's mouth, don't question what comes out of the Mayor Newsom's or de Blasio's mouth. Just shut up, be obedient, do what you're told, and that's our best path out of this. Those that have chosen that path are even starting to say, enough's enough. Because when you lose Bill Maher on the left to this COVID craziness, that ought to tell you something. And do yourself a favor, because, yeah, he goes after Republicans, conservatives. You better have a thick skin and be ready to laugh if you watch this guy. He goes a little too far for me sometimes, but he's not afraid to go after what he calls nonsense and craziness, whether you're Republican or Democrat. And it costs him sometimes in his career. It's a miracle, and he will second this statement that he hasn't been canceled. He says every day that he wakes up and he hasn't been canceled, it's a great show. People ask me, how'd your show go last night? It's great. I didn't get canceled. Great. What'd you talk about? Oh, it was a great show. And it's you see all of that going on when you simply make the kind of analysis that I'm making here about what I personally experienced. And I'm just one story. There's hundreds of thousands of these kind of stories all over the country. In fact, all over the world. The world's pretty much had it. So hopefully when we come out of this, we'll learn, as the Bible says, to respect authority. I think it's very important to respect authority. If you don't respect authority, you have chaos. If you don't like the laws that are in place and that we're living under, fight to change those laws. That's what Martin Luther King did. There is a place for social disobedience, to speak up, to make your voice heard. And I would go far as to say in a disruptive manner. I draw the line at violence. I think these truckers are doing it textbook in terms of taking your rights in a so-called democracy, which you could question whether Canada even is a democracy in the sense that we see democracy. They don't have a Bill of Rights over there. We do. So it's kind of a hybrid. And if you, do we have Justin Trudeau's tweet, Jose, I'd like to put up there, but I don't know. Do we have social media feed? We do have social media feed now. But those on radio, you've probably seen this if you're following the story, but simply by these truckers saying enough is enough of this madness. My goodness, they're in the cab alone. All right. Yet they weren't allowed to cross into state lines and cross country into another country without being vaccinated. They said, we don't even talk to people. We don't even get out of our trucks half the time. It gets unloaded. We go there to the destination. We've been up for 14 hours, so we're trying to sleep in our cab while the folks are unloading the load. And you want us to be forced to put a vaccine in their arm. So this whole protest against vaccine mandates kind of morphed into this statement about personal liberties and personal rights that have been trampled on from top to bottom. It started from 2 weeks. Give us 2 weeks. Wear a mask, stay home for 2 weeks to flatten the curve. My goodness. What a 2 weeks it's been. And we just have this tweet. For those of you on radio don't see it, I'll read it. Those of you on social media can see it along with me. It says, Justin, this is talking about the truckers. Today in the House, members of Parliament unanimously condemned the anti-Semitism. Where did he get that? It's insane. There was not a mention of any grievance against Jewish people. These Canadian truckers condemned the anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, anti-black racism, homophobia, and transphobia that we've seen on display in Ottawa over the past number of days. Together, let's keep working to make Canada more inclusive. Well, it's obvious what this man feels. Inclusiveness means you're welcome into the tent if you think like I do. If you can't call these truckers Islamophobic, anti-Semites, anti-black, anti-gay, anti-trans, if you don't share that belief, then you're a Nazi. I normally don't, and I'm not going to get personal here. I said I will never call somebody evil. I call their deeds evil because I believe as long as you're taking a breath, there's a chance for God to save you if you let him. That goes for the most despicable characters in history. That's up to God and them. As long as you're breathing, you got a shot. But you die in your sin, and that's a different story. But this guy, Trudeau, my goodness. Then he came out with a tweet. We don't have it right now. On top of that, doubling down and said that we need to really hold people accountable for their views, what they think. My goodness. That is right out of the Hitler playbook. Because when you start saying, I'm going to get inside your head, and based on a few words that you said, I'm going to determine what you're thinking, and your thinking is sedition and traitorous to the country, so I can pretty much do whatever I want to do. Now, you think I'm exaggerating? Justin Trudeau just put in place or exercised his right to impose the emergency acts that he has. I think that's the proper name for it, which gives him broad, sweeping powers to do just about anything whenever he wants to do it during a state of emergency, including coming in and cleaning out these truckers by any means necessary. I think there's more at stake in terms of the future not only of Canada, but the rest of the free world holding this kind of dictatorial fella. Man started out as a nice guy, but clearly by his tweets and his actions, he has let this power go to his head. He's drunk with power, and you let that go unchallenged on the West, United States. I think they need to hold him accountable right now. Well, what does that mean? Hey, sanction his butt. He said, are you serious? Listen to what he said to his own people. Look at those tweets. Look at the power he's given himself. I think there's more to be concerned about in Canada right now in terms of its ramifications on the future of the free world than there is happening in the Ukraine. I said it, but I believe it. Speaking of the Ukraine, we're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to go over the latest news, and it seems like there's some light out of the darkness in terms of the saber rattling by Putin in terms of the invasion. The LA Times just came out with a story. And when we come back, we're going to talk about that. This is Alan Autry, No Retreat, and we'll be right back. Just looking at my two screens here, some interesting stuff happening. In terms of that Durham report, we've been following that. The Hillary Clinton campaign, they've got a lot of explaining to do, and I don't know if the explanation is going to be good enough. Apparently not for John Durham.
We have a phone call.
Okay.
10 seconds.
Listening to the Alan Autry Show on the best talk in town. Talk Radio 1550 KXEX. Call Alan now, 559-899-1550.
And welcome back to Alan Autry No Retreat. Man, we have story after story breaking just now. The families, the Sandy Hook families, have reached a settlement with the gun manufacturer Remington. And it's the first time that a gun manufacturer has been held liable in a mass shooting. So we'll see what the ramifications of that. Don't want to weigh in with limited knowledge on that right now, on the details. But it looks like they didn't have to, go the full way of the lawsuit. They decided to settle, and probably the right thing to do. Before we get into let's do a little quick Olympic update. The Russians, I tell you, the Russians, by the way, if you notice, the Russians were kicked out of the Olympics. Oh, yeah. Gosh, I love that song. Then I realized the most crooked organization on the face of the earth, the International Olympic Committee. But I'm separating all that. I'm an idealist. I don't want to hate them, but man, if that didn't get your blood going. Anyway, our team is, American team, how do I put this? They're doing, let's put it away. When they go through the metal detectors to come back home, there's not going to be too many alarms set off on the metal detectors. Let's put it that way. But they're working hard. They're playing hard. They're giving it everything they got. But the Russians, they got kicked out for doing stuff, doping athletes. Yeah, but they're still competing, but they're competing under the ROC, the Russian Olympic Committee. That's who they're competing for, which I didn't know was a country. But apparently the Russian Olympic Committee is an honorary country for this year's Olympics. And there's a Russian skater there, a world champion skater, Kamila Vasilyeva. And I know I messed that up, 15 years old. But she's under a lot of controversy because she tested positive for a heart medication. Apparently, that's a performance-enhancing drug. She says it was her grandfather's medication. She had no idea. Anyway, they have all sorts of committees that they go before, 3 or 4. I was doing my research on this, couldn't even keep up with it. But one of these committees overturned it and said the suspension said she can compete. So she's competing. And I heard some folks say, she's 15 years old and she'll come back from this and be able to skate in the next Olympics, so she'll be only 19. Oh, no. Apparently in Russia, at 15, you're washed up. You're over the hill. There's this coach. His name is Atipi Tuberev. Say that one time fast, much less 3. But apparently the model there is you come into the program where they go out and recruit you to find the best skaters. You go with, I'll just call him Coach E. You get with Coach E when you're like 12 or 13, okay? And you start learning how to skate, how to do your figure skating. Then you compete in 15, 16, and then that's it. He's got another batch coming through there. So apparently your best skating years are when you're between 12 and like 15, 16 years old, which I find astounding. But you watch them, and you see all these phenoms. You know what? And I think what the deal is, it's not that they're that athletically superior to people 19, 20, 21, and 30. They're just fearless. I think you're fearless as a kid. Tanya, I want you to jump up now and do 5 spins in the air. Well, what if I land on my head? No problem. Oh, okay. They just go out and the same way with the gymnast. You see them do these triple flips off the thing, and then when they get a little older, I mean, we kind of saw it with our athlete. I forget her name. This wonderful world champion. It kind of got in her head doing
Simone Biles.
Yes, Simone Biles. She admitted it. I was okay when I was younger, and now I'm starting to think more. Said, it's pretty dangerous. Kind of like when I was playing football when I decided to retire and become an actor. After you get blitzed by that middle linebacker, and back then you could actually hit a quarterback, You take a helmet right under the chin a few times and you go, what are those feet moving fast? Why am I running out of the pocket quick? I better go start studying a script because this football isn't for me. Why? Because I don't like to get hit. Same that. I don't like to physically get my bell rung. That's what they used to call it, by the way. I see Jeremy nodding there. This is old school. When you would come out, when you get hit so hard in the head, you'd come off the field wobbling like you were drunk. And you usually had a coach there waiting for you, grabbing you by the mask, usually from the South. And he'd grab that mask and look in your eye and go, there ain't nothing wrong with you. There ain't nothing wrong with you. You just got your bell rung. Get over there, sit down, drink some water, and get ready to go back in. That's what it was. It was like, no, coach, they know more now. Coach, my bell didn't get rung. Actually, my cerebellum and my cerebrum banged up against my skull, and it bled. I'm bleeding inside my brain right now. I didn't get my bell rung. So you learn more about things, and the more you know can kind of affect how hard you compete. So anyway, I'm going to go out on the limb. Don't blame the kids, whether they be from Russia, communist China. I see these kids from communist China skating their rears off, doing just for their country. They don't know any better. They don't know. They haven't been taught about the tens of millions of people that the Communist Party killed to create that government. That's been kept from them. They don't know. Russia, the kid just wants to come out in a better life. How would you like to live in Siberia? The only way out to maybe a better life is if your 12-year-old can skate. And they don't listen to the politics. They're too poor. And when they get out there, it's hard. I know people that just, I got a buddy, he just, look at that little commie shoe. I ain't going to watch that little commie skate. And I said, Fred, come on. I said, I don't watch much of it either because I don't like figure skating. But towards the finals, I like it because it's for all the marbles. And don't blame these kids. It's not their fault. It's evil systems that they grew up under. And my goodness, root for them to do the best they can. And this young skater, has to skate with all this hanging on her. And I'm going to go and say, hey, yeah, I hope our kids win. I'm pulling for the U.S., you bet. But I also have a place in my heart for this little Russian skater. I hope she can get through it. And if she happens to get her gold medal, that she doesn't let all this controversy around her, steal her joy and the joy from her family. Now let's go to the Ukrainian invasion. It's going to happen tomorrow. I think we got Laura on the line. Laura, are you there? No, she's not. She was. Laura, if you're there, you can go ahead and call back if you can. We just had a little disconnection there. But the LA Times came out today in their headline and said there may be hope for a negotiated diplomatic solution to the Ukraine crisis. And that's what I've been saying. I don't believe, again, anything's possible. I think it's blown way out of proportion. Even President Zelensky from Ukraine has said as such. The average citizen on the street in Ukraine has said as much. It seems like the only ones that don't believe it are Joe Biden, Jake Sullivan, which, by the way, there's some just shocking news from the Durham report involving Jake Sullivan in terms of the hacking of Donald Trump's candidates, Trump Towers computers, and also when he became president. Is a huge story. But we got Laura on the phone, and I want to get Laura's take on this invasion that's supposed to happen tomorrow. And CNN just said more likely this week than not the invasion begins. Are you there, Laura?
I'm here.
Well, we talked a little bit about it. I think it was yesterday. I still stand by this. If there's not enough, it's like it's not enough we have to worry about in this world. First of all, does even just the issue of Russia going into the Ukraine, does it really rise to the level of that it's at now in terms of how we, the United States, are looking at this? And I guess to break it down into common terms, is Ukraine really that important? Now, I'm not up for invasion, don't get me wrong, but I just don't see the vital national interest that we're shipping thousands of troops over there and vowing to take extraordinary measures, what does that mean? Does that mean just sanctions? Or does that mean we're going to start sending tanks and planes there? The rhetoric coming out of this administration towards Vladimir Putin, does it warrant that at this time, in your mind?
Well, here's the thing.
Maybe you do, and I respect that if you feel it's. Go ahead.
In opinion, as an American citizen, as somebody who pays a lot of attention to our foreign policy and so forth,
yes,
no. But unfortunately, we as a country went into an agreement with Ukraine 25 years ago. We reinforced that under the Obama administration that we would protect them. And why all of a sudden, I mean, we haven't kept our word on a whole lot of other things. I'm not going to go there, but I don't see why this is absolutely fundamental that we keep our word, because in this regard, because at the end of the day, what Putin has created, and believe me, I think this man is big of a Bond villain as you could possibly ever imagine.
Exactly.
But he's also brilliant.
He is.
Literally, in real time, in real life, this man has created a Kobayashi Maru.
Kobayashi what? A Kobayashi Maru.
Alan, Autry, you don't know what the Kobayashi Maru is? Shame on you.
I have no idea. Shame on me. What is it?
Kobayashi Maru is from Star Trek, and that is the final test that you have to pass in order to get through Starfleet.
Well, gosh, how many of those Star Treks do they make? I saw probably the first 3, and they make like 15 or 16 of them, Laura. Cut me some slack. I don't know Kobayashi.
It's the original show, dude.
Okay, I'll get with it. All right, I'll get with it. Go ahead. Okay, I've been Kobayashi shamed.
It is a no-win scenario if you play by the rules. You cannot win if you play by the rules. And the only person that ever won was Captain Kirk because he cheated. So it has been coined since then. A no-win situation is known as a Kobayashi Maru.
Okay.
Anyway, and how he's done that is there are 3 possible ways this could end. Number 1, he invades Ukraine. We end up in a conflict. Well, how do you think that's going to work here? It's because, as you well know, Republicans, by and large, especially because of Reagan ushered in this hawkish, strong backbone foreign policy ideology that is the cornerstone of the Republican platform for a very long time. I don't have a problem with that at all.
Nope.
The Democrats, on the other hand, they want to be global citizens. They want to love everyone and hold everybody's hand.
The problem is
Democrat president who's now willing to go into a conflict. Do the Democrats back him on that? Do they criticize him on that? We're going into midterms. And then the Republicans, do they back this Democrat because he is showing backbone, or do they criticize it? So you have all of that going on. Then you have the American people who are not real keen on going into another conflict after the dumpster fire we just watched in August. So let's say he doesn't invade. Let's say they come to the table and they say, okay, we're gonna sanction him. The only thing that's going to have any real effect on him is sanctioning oil and gas. Well, that's a problem for our Western allies because 77% of their oil and gas comes from Russia. Now, Biden has said, oh, well, I'll step in and I'll make sure that I take care of that. How? Because the 2 other major oil and gas exporters are Saudi Arabia and China.
Well, we used to be before he shut down the Keystone Pipeline. We were going to be one of the biggest exporters of energy, but Biden shut down the Keystone Pipeline from Canada.
Right, but I'm saying outside of us, you take China and you take Saudi Arabia. Okay, well, MBS and Xi Jinping have been in a bromance for the last 3 years, and now Putin and Xi Jinping are having a bromance. So neither of those two are going to go against Putin to supply oil and gas. Not going to do it. So that means it's going to come out of our finite supply. Can you imagine the popularity he's going to have when we're paying $8 a gallon for gas?
Absolutely.
Because we're supplying half of our gas to Europe?
Yep.
And then if we don't give them a supplier, we've lost our Western allies. We're basically going to blow up NATO. It doesn't matter which strategy they take. Putin is going to win because, number one, he's going to expose us, already has, that we are weak on the world stage. So going forward, no matter how this plays out, he can say, oh, look, he's taking all of their gas away from his own people and giving it to other countries. He's hurting his own people. It doesn't matter what propaganda angle he takes.
Yeah.
When he goes to other countries, he's going to be able to use that. So is China.
Yeah, he's got all the cards. You know, I heard this phrase the other day, and it's absolutely true. Putin is playing chess, and Biden's playing checkers. And the chess master,
he's playing cooties. That game those little kids play.
There's no win. You talked about politically here at home. There's no appetite to start another war. It's the last thing the Democrats need. It is to start another war. So it doesn't fly politically here at home. He's in too deep now by sending troops over there, creating this crisis, and then hoping. The only logic I see at play with Biden administration and his bevy of brilliant advisors, which never cease to amaze me, is the old technique of creating a crisis that isn't there. You come riding in on the white horse and solve the crisis that was never there, and you get some credit for it. But the people, as you said, are too knowledgeable now. They know more. The average citizen, the average global citizen, including the average American, knows more. And I said this on the show the other day. And they talk about follow the science when you're talking about health and medical issues. And you will, true science. Follow the science. Probably the best way to find real answers and be able to explain things and chart a future path in dealing with that particular issue, whatever it may be. And in the same thing as you just very adroitly laid out, in foreign affairs, follow the politics. Follow them. Follow the political decision. Who has what to gain and who has what to lose? You figure that out. Then these decisions make. And for Putin, it's very obvious. As you said, the big kahuna is to somehow stitch together a revitalization and an even stronger, evolved Soviet Union. It won't look like the old Soviet Union where you have troops everywhere. And you mentioned it the other day. It'll be more modeled after the Xi Jinping model, which is economically controlled. They don't want to be in other countries with troops trying to control it. But they, like the Chinese, they call it, you're very familiar with this. Let's use Australia, for example. They'll help Australia build these ports and that sort of thing, spend billions and billions of dollars in debt. Then when the country can't repay the debt, they come in and take over the infrastructure. China owns that port in Australia, and they're doing it, as you said, with that Belt and Road Initiative. I see Putin doing the same thing. What's your thoughts?
Because
I see him trying to do the same thing in the old Soviet. You see the Ukraine, then you have Romania, you have Poland. I can see that's the beginning of his Belt and Road.
One of the reasons that he's partnered up with Xi Jinping is because after the fall of the Soviet Union, none of these countries could get their economic footing, period. They could not. Even after they joined the EU and they went to the euro across Europe to try to stabilize some of these countries, that was the primary purpose in doing it, was because their currencies would fluctuate horribly. But the problem is that none of those countries ever really put forth the effort to become true democracies. The level of organized crime, the oligarchy, everything that still is happening in those countries has not gone away. And what we imagine,
including the Ukraine, including the Ukraine. Ukraine's a corrupt country. Yeah. It's not a democracy.
No. And what Putin's done, though, is he has media in those countries. He has newspapers, he has TV stations. And so he puts out this soft propaganda showing how well the Russian people are doing, how economically stable they are, which they are considerably more so than the people in many of these countries like Hungary, Belarus,
right.
Places like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so by using that, he slowly divides the people. Well, Xi Jinping, of course, took advantage in 2013, 2014 to go in and do Belt and Road initiatives to help their economic footing. Well, no, they're not going to be able to repay the loans. Putin has aligned himself with Xi Jinping to strong-arm them and say, if you don't start playing nice with Russia, we may call in your loans.
Yeah. Oh, there's no doubt Xi Jinping is looked at by these other dictatorial individuals, figures around the world as the Bill Belichick of governance. They want to mimic, every coach wanted to mimic Belichick, how they do it in New England. And now they're looking, hey, man, this guy's been able to control the world. They make everything there. There's no riots. There's no unions to deal with. This is the way to do it, man, because democracy is tough to govern. Why? Because the people demand to be treated equally and with respect. It's easier to be a dictatorship. And here's what I think. Let me ask you this another question real quick, because I'm really interested in your thoughts on this from Laura's perspective, not research you as a person, because I think you have great insights on things. I think that the most that's going to happen in this particular confrontation with Ukraine is Putin taking Biden up on his invitation to do a minor incursion. I can see possibly him crossing the border of Ukraine, perhaps in a limited way, not getting into the big cities, not even confronting the forces, maybe to rendezvous up with the 35,000 rebel separatists that are controlled by Russia, that are in there fighting the Ukrainian government. What do you think of the possibility? I personally, I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it's going to be a wake-up call to Zelensky saying, hey, next time we come, comrade, you better start, get away from this NATO stuff. Don't even think about NATO, Western Europe. Get rid of these NATO things. We're not going to let you expand there. That they've gotten the message. I think Putin knows they've gotten the message. And I don't think they're going to happen. But if there was something, what do you think about that theory that I just laid out, that it might be kind of that minor incursion, as Biden talked about?
I think the minor incursion would only be a ploy to get something more. I'll send you the 2 treaties that he wrote in December. I thought I sent them to you, but I think I just told you about them. I don't think that I actually sent them to you, because it's kind of a laundry list of Putin's, dream come true. And I think if he gets anything on that, I honestly think they're gonna cave on the NATO, because Ukraine hasn't even applied for EU status. They're not even projected to apply for EU status until 2024, 2025. So that's 3 years out.
Right.
And then you've got to look at a minimum of 10 years ahead of that before they're even going to be considered for NATO. And I think the way they look at it is, we're going to do this now and then we'll rework it later.
Right. I with 100%. And then the NATO bylaws, it says you can't have a rebellion going on when you apply for NATO membership. So you got these rebel separatists.
Knows that better than anybody, but Vladimir Putin.
Except Vladimir Putin. Real quick here, let me run down. I did a little work on Vladimir last night, and just because I was just interested and really plan on talking about it on the show here. But he's brilliant. Yeah, let me run this by you real quick, Laura. And we were going to take a break, but let's not. We're running out of time here. But let me just give you, the listeners and those of you on social media, just a quick little background on Putin. And then you can kind of, I think, get inside the guy's head a little bit and realize why we're just really overmatched with the president and his administration we have now, trying to play.
Can I say one thing about Biden?
Yeah.
Can I just say one thing about Biden? This is something that we're going to battle. If he doesn't resign, if he doesn't get impeached,
he's going to.
God, I pray every night he does.
He will.
But if he doesn't, the biggest problem with Biden, the very biggest problem with him, if you really studied this man, he has no political identity.
No, none.
Not really.
I don't think he knows who he
Donald
is.
Trump.
Yeah.
For good or for bad, Donald Trump knew who he was. Joe Biden doesn't. He has spent his entire career as a chameleon. Sometimes he's a moderate Democrat. Sometimes he's a liberal Democrat. Sometimes he's a conservative Democrat. Sometimes he's borderline Republican. Sometimes he's woke far left. And when you're sitting in a body of 100, you can skate by with that. But when you sit in the office of president, you stand alone, and a bright light gets shown on you. And it's demonstrated this man has no identity.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And being in that leadership position is not something that's comfortable. It doesn't align with human nature. You have to make human nature is to get away from uncomfortable situations. You know, you're sitting on a tack where you get up because you don't like the feeling of that tack in your butt. You want to get leadership of this magnitude is the same way. If you haven't sat in that hot seat, been held accountable for your decisions, had to put up with the criticisms and be able to stay your ground if you feel it's right, like a Reagan, like Franklin Roosevelt, you can go down the line, like a George W. Bush, whether you like him or not. But again, it's a very difficult thing to deal with, and he never has. And at this advanced, the old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I think I pointed out in this show, I agree with you 100%. But real quick, let me run this real quick, little bio on Putin. Born October 7th, 1952, so that makes him just a little bit younger than me by a few months. He became president in 2012 and served as president between 1999 and 2008. And then when he was termed out under Medvedev, he became the prime minister for 1 year, 1999 to 2000. Then he came back and ran again in 2012. He was also going back prior to his presidency. Some people, you hear it all the time out there, even reported on major outlets that he was the head of the KGB. He was not the head of the KGB, but he was a very high-ranking KGB foreign intelligence officer for 16 years. That's where, Laura, you learn it all. Then he became the federal security head under Boris Yeltsin. Then he became the acting president in 2004, then was reelected. Then it gets really interesting. Back in 2021, they had a referendum because he said, we're doing so well, as you pointed out, the country. He's a central piece in that. He wanted to extend his term. The Constitution has it that you're termed out after two terms, like there is in the United States of America. Well, in this referendum, he was allowed to put in an amendment that allow him to do 2 more terms, which could conceivably, if he decides to do that, he could be the president of Russia until 2036. Now, you may say, well, that manipulative, evil comment, whatever. Yeah, and you may be right. But that's a smart man. He had a goal to stay in power.
He's a brilliant.
Right? I mean, my goodness.
Yeah. That he knows how, the thing is, they talk about on TV about how the Russians are they don't want this war in Ukraine and so forth. No, they don't. But for everyone over the age of 35 in Russia, they know what life was like under Soviet law. They know the way they live their lives.
Right.
And Putin, maybe he's not perfect, but Putin has afforded them more freedom, better economic status, has provided better medical care and better education than anything that they had, even since the fall of the Soviet Union. And because of that, they're like, we'd rather have that than what we had before. So shut up.
Laura,
that's their attitude.
And here's the attitude about and concerning the mainstream press when you talk this way, when they would hear something like this. You're absolutely true, because I did a lot of research on Putin and the Soviet Union. You're absolutely right. Unemployment went down, their GDP went up. By every measure, he improved the life. As you mentioned, while every other country that used to be in the Soviet Union kind of regressed, they didn't get their act together. And just by mentioning that, you're a commie, you're a Russian sympathizer, you're Putin's talking points, using Putin's talking points. And dadgummit, if we don't stand up to the mainstream media and say, look, me saying that doesn't mean I support this dude. by any stretch of the imagination. That's like saying, hey, because the Nazi Germany instituted things that made their children physically fit beyond any other society ever, that I agree with Hitler. You know, that's
Exactly.
and we have to grow past that if we're going to have the necessary, essential dialogue and discourse and debate in this country that we're going to have if we're going to remain a superpower able to compete with China and a fast rising Russia. Do you not believe that?
Well, and we have to be able to understand our adversaries, not just those leaders, but the people that support them,
Right.
the people that live in the countries. We have to, just like Putin has studied us. How do you think we'd ended up in the position that we're in? Because this man was able to do so many divisive things.
Absolutely. He knows
Over
what
the
Nancy Pelosi, what kind of ice cream Nancy Pelosi eats breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This guy. He knows everything.
He knows, and he knows the mentality of the American people. Well, we should know that about them.
Absolutely.
With saying Putin is in great favor with his people because he's done these things. That doesn't make you a communist. It doesn't
Exactly.
make you a fan of
Exactly.
Putin. It makes you an accurate, observant individual.
Exactly. And mainstream media and all you liberal, these elites out there, quit trying to babysit my mind and Laura's mind.
Yeah.
Quit trying to babysit free-thinking, critical-thinking people. Number one, you're not qualified to do that. And number two, you got to trust us as Americans that we're going to be able to look at this and not suddenly want to, fly the communist flag and want to move to Beijing or Sochi. There, Laura Fisher, thank you for joining. We're running out of time, dear. 20 seconds. Thank you for joining us, my dear. Appreciate you. Always make us, we're a lot more wiser every time you come on the show, Laura. Thank you so much. And God bless y'all. Good Lord willing, creek don't rise. We get a chance to do it tomorrow. Bye-bye now. Weather. Social media. I know we're a little bit late. Did we make it? How long when we started the program? Were we on? We did. Yeah, I tell you, Jose. Let me tell you about this guy. Brilliant in the control room, yes. Stellar character as a human being, absolutely. Wonderful husband and father, you bet. But man, the dude can move too. Quick as a freaking cat. Right before the show, he ran in here. He had to unplug something or other. We were like just a few seconds. And that dude went down, crawfishing back, plugged something in, zipped out here, planted his left foot and cut like the Los Angeles Rams running back, that Akers, went through the door, came in. I just looked up at the screen, looked back. He had his earphones on, hat backwards, ready to go. You're a one quick dude, man. That was very, very impressive. So if this doesn't work out here and you want to go sign with the Rams or the Bengals, I'm sure they'd be open to you. Folks, thanks for tuning in. I got a scat here. And like I said, good Lord willing, we'll be able to do it tomorrow. Autry's Army, I can't thank you enough. We're starting to grow, our little band of brothers and sisters. We're growing and growing in our message of God, family, country, and just plain common sense, respect for others, whether we agree with them or not. That's what our movement's all about what Autry's Army's all about. And when old Alan Autry can't be in the saddle anymore for whatever reason, there got to be some others come in part of the Army. And we're all together on this, and there's such strength in numbers. When you believe, if you're righteous in your goals, you're righteous in your pursuits, it's amazing what people can do, what a small little movement can do. And I consider us that. We're not just a radio show or a social media program. We're all a little movement, and it's just an honor today and every day to be a part of that movement with you. So God bless. Go home and just hug somebody.